Hey y'all, once again, we're adding to our greatest hits collection where we're replaying episodes from the previous 6 years that are just as relevant today. This was episode number 202 and it originally aired in February of 2022. On this one, we shared some provocative thinking about what might happen if hospitals don't ultimately change course in the midst of their unsustainable trajectory. Hospitals aren't ever going away, but the ways that they operate, engage with consumers, and market themselves could look very different in the near future. Check it out and let us know if this is starting to come true today.
The flow.
Once again, I'm here with Zain Ismail, the one and only. Zain, how have you been?
Good, not bad. Hanging in there. It's a sunny day today in Detroit, which is nice to get some sun in the summer up here, or sorry, the winter up here.
So settling into the new digs there, sounds like. Is there anything particularly awesome in your life you've come across recently?
You know, I bought myself one of those Roombas, the robot vacuum, and I need to give a shout out to my grandmother who gave me $500 towards it. It's quite a bit more than 500, but it has been like the best investment I've ever made. I don't know if you have one, Jared, but this thing, so I have hardwood floors where I live, and this thing picks up everything. And so it like maps out your whole place. You can set it, it's controlled by an app on your phone. You can tell it to just go and vacuum the kitchen or vacuum the bathroom, and it's perfect. And then I bought the one that empties into like a larger hopper, and so I barely have to worry about emptying it. And so it's just really cool. I like gadgets, and I don't know, like it saves me time. Like literally, like I don't ever worry about, vacuuming the floor. I do mop from time to time, but it keeps all the dust off, and you just wouldn't believe what's like on your floors. And so for fun, I'll just do this thing like every other day or sometimes every day and just see it go around. And it's cool. I named it David. So I have a buddy who actually owns a cleaning company, Mr. Maid, actually over in Windsor, Ontario. And so I named it after him. If the Roomba wasn't doing it and I wasn't doing it, I'd probably hire his company to come and clean my floors. So definitely get a Roomba if you're looking for that. And especially if you're young and single and don't have a whole lot of time, get one.
I'm going to say that same advice applies to everybody. It's pretty life-changing. Yeah. And for us, it was just the beginning of the home gadget purchases.
So you have one?
We do. We have one. And we consider it a member of the family. He has his chores to do every day. He's got to get it done. Lately, he's either suffering a little bit of memory loss. He gets almost back to home, and then he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to go all the way home." He's like 2 feet away. He's like, "Nah, I'm good."
Oh no! But you can buy the one. So mine is the fancy one that also integrates with the mopping one, and so if you buy both, they can kind of work in tandem. I think that's too extreme for me now. Maybe in 2 years, I'll upgrade to that setup.
Nice.
Which is so cool.
We have proliferated smart plugs as well all over the house now. So lamps, they integrate with our Echo Dots, which are in every room. We have an Echo Show in the kitchen. And I'm trying not to say it too loud or it's going to activate and ask me what I want right now. There's one on my desk. It's nuts. So we can just say like light on, lamp on in certain rooms. And like I said, I think this all started with our Roomba when we're like, wait, we can have like more gadgets and autonomy in the house and, first world problems. But hey, I say if it's there and available and easy, we've already got everything set up. You can control it from an app. Why not?
And it really does save time. And when you own these things, like you kind of learn what needs to come up the floor. You just modify things so that it doesn't get stuck. And I love it. I'm going to have one for the rest of my life for sure.
Totally. I think that's a great advice.
Yeah, get one. And we need them to be a sponsor. Here we are pumping products on the podcast.
All right. If anyone has a contact at a Roomba, and if not, we can get that going ourselves. Well, I'll tell you what, let's dig in here a little bit on our topic. This is going to be a little interesting one because this is in a way headline based, but this is more like predictive. I feel like what we see happening if certain things don't happen. So we're going to talk about today about what happens if hospitals don't change.
Ooh,
and a lot of times we've talked about how hospitals are on an unsustainable trajectory. Mm-hmm. And for me, the quote that kind of set that up was a few months ago by Aaron Martin out at Providence. And this is how he said it. He said, as an industry, we're on an unsustainable trajectory. Poor customer experience is still the norm, not the exception. There are more manual processes than I've ever seen in any industry, and there are significant barriers to data liquidity. We're using technology that in the case of EMRs is encumbered by old core technology and massive technical debt. It's driving away patients who are used to far more digital convenience in the rest of their lives and burning out clinicians that care for them. So for me, I just think like there's a lot of pieces to this. Yes, technology is driving some of the the unsustainability, I guess. I don't even know if that's a word, but the unsustainable part of what he was describing of if hospitals stay the same, then we're going to have a problem even more. It's just going to get magnified. It's just going to get worse. And so we want to explore kind of in the near long-term future, I'd say 2 to 3 years from now, if we just kind of take that as our window in terms of what could happen if hospitals keep staying the same. And I think we're addressing it from two sides in particular. As usual, we're talking about digital transformation and consumer transformation. They're very related. As I've said before, as I believe more and more with every day, with every week, it's that digital transformation has had to happen. It's the means, not an end. It's not a destination. All things in healthcare are not solved once we get to a certain level of competency and superiority with digital health and how health systems operate using digital tools. But we're not even close to that yet. So it's going to be a long time before we even get to the point where we're like, hey, are we there? Are we done digitally transforming? But this is the stuff that had to happen. It's the foundation that we had to build upon so that we actually can provide a better customer experience. So Aaron Martin in this article was addressing, I think, both sides. How do you ultimately, what's the reason for digitizing business processes and operations and customer outreach? Well, it's so that you can ultimately provide a better experience. In my mind, I think that's where he was going with it. But he was also bringing the provider's standpoint into it, also saying this is one big reason why clinicians are getting burnt out. It is not making anything easier for anybody, seemingly. So, and in a lot of ways, it was very forced upon them. So with all that said, where do you want to go with this, Zain, in terms of what you think things could be looking like if we don't change course?
Yeah, that is a really interesting question. I think one thing that I'll say that maybe to get started is I don't think there's any scenario in the next 10 to 20 years where hospitals defined as the acute care setting are going away. They're not just going to disappear like Blockbuster, that's for sure. But I do think their role in health systems, more defined as the entire continuum of care, is going to change. And so I think if hospitals, and I think we're going to have to be careful of the language here when we're talking about the hospital proper and the health system, which is a collection of hospitals and other community, other areas of the community of care. I think if legacy traditional health systems who are hospitals plus don't get on board with some of the things we're talking about, what we might run the risk of is seeing where the acute care piece sort of gets taken away and sort of the primary care, the health and wellness, the more upstream parts of care become their own entity or their own thing. Maybe they're purchased or now working in collaboration with, digital innovators, be it like Amazon or Lord only knows who's going to be in the future, who are excellent at the consumer experience, excellent at doing all the things that we talk about. And then these folks will then broker and direct demand to another entity, almost in a very commoditized way, for the acute care piece. That's sort of how I see it. So I think hospitals proper at risk. And, what I'm noticing is, even on a staffing side or on a young professional side, it seems like less and less, this is just anecdotes, less and less, people in my network are excited about maybe climbing the ladder and becoming a hospital CEO, and now are more interested in doing things more in the ambulatory space or in the digital and innovation space because they realize that's the area that matters more, as opposed to the inpatient space that risks being a little bit commoditized. And then maybe the next thing I'll say is I could see, maybe there's a day where there's a new corporation comes and starts buying up hospitals. Not that we don't already see that, but with the sole purpose of hospital only and running those things super, super efficiently. And so almost like making them, not that they aren't already, but there's certainly huge opportunities to improve, but like super efficient factories for inpatient care that may or may not include the clinical piece. And so what I could see is, a group coming together, purchasing hospitals and truly being the landlord. So responsible for equipment, to an extent, facility design and construction, making sure the place is clean, the lights are running, it's safe, it's secure. And then everything else sort of flows in and out of it, be it, the clinical teams, maybe we're going to start brokering with specialists, specialty groups, other groups, maybe, we're receiving demand from Amazon Care, who needs places for, some of their members now to, get a hip replacement, things like that. I just see the hospital piece as, I don't want to say losing relevance, but it's no longer like the cutting edge of what's ultimately going to drive health systems.
So what this comes down to is not the fact that demand is going to go down. What it comes down to is which ones are profitable and operationally feasible and determined to be growth areas for hospitals in particular. So you're right, like a health system, we need to be clear, and that a health system often includes not just the physical buildings of hospitals, but ambulatory surgical centers, urgent cares, all sorts of other offices and clinics and physical locations. And having been on the inside of some business strategy planning in a health system, in a hospital, it's interesting to see how much of it does involve building more buildings. And the thing that's celebrated and lauded was, yeah, cool. We determined a location in a certain demographic, and the big point of the growth plan was to put another building in, another hospital, another ASC, whatever it is. And I think that's interesting. I think if we're asking ourselves, is that part of the trajectory sustainable? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's worth thinking of building another hospital as the only means of growth, because coming back to the theme of the last 2 seasons, really, which has been consumer health and non-traditional entrants entering the space and being able to come in and chip away part of your margin, whether it's primary care or some very specialized acute care service line. But they're able to come in and chip away just part of that because it's part of their value chain. They don't care about the rest. The words continuum of care are not even in their vocabulary. They're just like, this is the part that we're going to come in and address. This makes sense for our customers. In other ways, we value that relationship. This is something we can easily offer. We see some profitability there. And I think it's part of the puzzle. I think it's one piece. I just wonder how much that gets squeezed in the next 2 or 3 years. I wonder if administrators, if strategic planners, if CSOs in particular, as they're looking at where do they grow coming out of this pandemic purgatory, where do they go from here? I have a feeling we're going to see more of them try to build more buildings. And I just don't know if that's the answer. Like that's a very old school way of thinking. Well, the way to address the new healthcare consumer is in the way we've done it for the last 200 years. I just don't see that is the right way to go. I feel like if you can latch on now and recognize there's an opportunity to disrupt yourself, you can either do it now when no one's hitting 100% of their pre-pandemic volumes and revenue and here's your opportunity now, or you can wait a little down the road till you have been disrupted more. And I think it's going to happen so slowly that it's not going to be a real clear, obvious time where everyone, like it just clicks for every CEO and CSO and CMO, and they all start saying, okay, now we're going to change this. We're going to, I don't know, partner with Teladoc. We're going to, I'm just making it up, like partner with another virtual care. And we're going to integrate that better. And we're going to have more integration. We're going to really line up our data so that it makes sense across all of our platforms. And that's going to be the foundation of now we can offer a better online scheduling experience. Now we can truly offer you like, what's your preference? It's virtual, it's in person. Okay, cool. We can accommodate all that. It's easy. Let's incorporate some principles of online experience design. And I don't know, it's such a different conversation than how can we keep going back to the well in the same way. I just feel like I hope the conversation changes, I guess, is ultimately what I hope happens.
Yeah, well, and maybe speaking about changing conversation, another thing I've been thinking about is, I'll take a step back. So through this pandemic, I think it's become very obvious that perhaps in the United States, and I would say in Canada too, we don't have systems set up in a way that actually take care of the geographies in which some of these institutions are actually in. And so I could see in the future hospitals, health systems, or whatever, however you want to define them, actually starting to become responsible and accountable for the health of the communities in which they serve. So meaning like the physical geography, like I used to work for Henry Ford Hospital. Technically, Henry Ford Hospital isn't accountable for the health of the city of Detroit. It's accountable really to, the health of, the health plans for the populations of the health plans they're contracted with, which is different. And so I could see it more on the political side, especially as Gen Z, becomes more able to vote and push. And, maybe we start to move closer to a single payer system here in the United States. I could see those accountabilities changing where we're actually going to have to start to create systems for health and wellness that take care of those geographic populations and not just insurance code covered populations. So when you think that through, what I could see happening then is, these massive mega health systems potentially starting to break up. So it's actually very difficult to have a local focus when you're, trying to run a health system, nationally, right, or regionally or super regionally across multiple states. And so I think that remains to be seen. And I think what's going to happen is, Americans, or Michiganders, wherever you're at, will potentially be willing to sacrifice some level of efficiency and some level of integration in exchange for local flexibility and the ability for these hospital systems to actually serve local needs, which may not be the same as when you zoom out nationally. So I think that's something that's also playing in the background that we can't forget. I know we talk on the show a lot about technology, but healthcare doesn't just exist in tech, and it doesn't just exist on its own. It's playing in a bigger sphere. And, the changing politics and the changing values of Americans, I think has to be factored in when we think about, what's the future role of a hospital and the health system.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way before. I think that's an important consideration here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even by way of example, so when I used to work for a health system in Canada, even though it's still not technically true, but it's, hospitals in Canada are much more aligned to the actual epidemiological needs of the physical community they're in because they're funded by the government, right? And so usually what we do when we strategic plan in Canada is we say, okay, what are the needs in Windsor, or what are the needs in Leamington or Kingsville, which is, the communities just across from Detroit. Then we say, how much money do we have? Therefore, what can we do about it, right? How much money is the government giving us? Where in the US, usually what happens with strategic planning is they say, they start from an economic perspective and say, what is the payer mix like in XYZ area? Basically what communities by zip code almost pay the best. Then what are the needs? And then see then how might we then, meet those needs to then also ultimately go after their revenue. So it's a little bit backwards. And I could see those things starting to change and blend a little bit. And then not to go too far down in the weeds, but when you think about, and I don't know how much exposure you had to this, Jared, in your own career, but all the community benefit reporting that's required by not-for-profit health systems. So basically they have to demonstrate to the government that they're doing sort of more than just delivering clinical care. They're benefiting the community so that they can keep their not-for-profit status and not have to pay taxes. I think that's going to be called into question, especially as so many of these not-for-profit health systems, were basically given helicopter dumps of cash through COVID to do something. And I think once the dust settles around COVID, people are going to come looking, the political class largely, to say, hey, what was really done with that money? And I suspect the answers aren't always going to be great, which might put then pressure on revisiting, okay, all of our hospital systems that are receiving public dollars that are not paying taxes, are they really delivering what we need them to do for the community? So that's another piece to this whole puzzle that I think might change.
Yeah, it really is a puzzle, isn't it? There are different aspects of it. It comes back to experience, and it comes back to how safe you feel, how much you trust everything about the experience. It's all often together, connected in a patient's mind. So yeah, the safety of the facility, in addition to the actual clinical care, was the food good at the cafeteria? I mean, it's one experience for a person at a time. So it's all connected. So if I kind of try to sum this up and I try to answer this question of what if hospitals continue on this trajectory? What if they don't change? I think in summary from my side, I would question their ability to continue operating in the same way because they will be addressing fewer and fewer healthcare consumers' needs and demands, which they've not been good at historically of addressing anyway in a material way compared to, like the article said from Aaron Martin, compared to the rest of our lives, compared to the digital convenience that we're experiencing everywhere else. That gap is going to grow bigger. And so I think it might not be today, might not be tomorrow. It might not be even the current slate of consumer brands who have entered the space. It might not be Amazon or Walmart that wins from a retail perspective. It might be some new player though. It might be someone flying under the radar right now, like Best Buy, Like they've clearly planted their flag in the home health area. It could be one of these connected fitness brands that you bring up often, Lululemon or Nike, or like one of these, Peloton, which Prof G predicts will be acquired by the end of this year, by the way.
Who did he say who?
No,
Apple?
He really didn't.
I think he's mentioned Apple before.
He did make a case for that, but he's like, I don't know about that. He did make a case for it, though.
I wouldn't be surprised it's Amazon because they're already working together through Precor, because Precor is now, like we've talked about, working with Amazon Care, and Peloton bought Precor. I'm sure they're all talking in the background. I mean, I would be. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, so if you had to sum this up in terms of what if hospitals don't change?
I would say very simply, then hospitals will become order takers. And so they will basically be given, here's the demand we want you to service, here's the price we're paying, take it or leave it. If not, we're going down the street to the next inpatient provider. So I think that's the big risk here of becoming an order taker as opposed to being, one of the entities that's actually defining the market and defining the market.
Nice. I like it. Well, we'll have to do more episodes like this. We don't have a crystal ball anymore than anyone else, but we're definitely trying to keep our ears to the ground and put some of these pieces together more than they are right now. Absolutely. So yeah, maybe we can revisit this one like in the future and say like, were we close?
Yeah, maybe next year we need to write this down or remember what we said. And then next year revisit it and see if we're even close to what we discussed.
For sure. Well, as always, it's a pleasure to talk through this stuff with you and just see what we think. Stay safe, stay well, and good luck with that Roomba. My goodness, life is changing.
Thank you. Chat later.
Hey, thanks again for listening. We hope you found some value in this conversation. And if you did, do us a favor and follow us using your favorite podcast app. Then tell your friends and colleagues about us. If you like what you heard, please spread the word. Healthcare App is a member of the Shift.Health Content Network. If you enjoyed this podcast, you're going to love the other shows in the Shift.Health Content Network. Go check out the latest show. In fact, it's called Hello Healthcare, hosted by Chris Hemphill. It's focused on people who are moving healthcare forward, how healthcare strategy relates to data and AI, and what you can do to create or demand a better future. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform or at Shift.Health, where all 35 podcasts and video series are free and available on demand. Until next time, keep marketing forward. Thanks. And that's a wrap.